Welcome to the Group Home Riches Podcast. If you have the desire to be your own boss, create your own schedule, and become financially free while at the same time helping people in need, then you've come to the right place. At GroupHomeRiches.com, we teach people exactly like yourself how to get started in the group home business, and on this podcast, you're going to hear their stories firsthand.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Group Home Riches Podcast. Today's guest, we have another one of our school kind of rock stars. We'll get into the intro and stuff like that, but we were cooking before we started to record. So why don't we rewind? Matt, why don't you let the people know what you have on your list?
Being on this podcast, I started about a year ago, and when I started listening to the podcast, one of the goals that I set in my mind and then on paper was, I want to be on the Group Home Riches podcast. And less than a year later, here I am. So I get to cross my list tonight.
Hey, Matt, quick question. Did you write that down or was that just in your head?
So I wrote it down. I feel like they have to be written.
Absolutely. Brandon, can you just, and I know the main focus is you, Matt, but Brandon, just for the audience and for all of our clients out there, since you and I talk about that all the time, can you just spit out some thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there listening are into, we joke around about it and call it woo-woo stuff, but The Secret, Think and Grow Rich, there's so many of these books that kind of talk about the esoteric stuff. And I, for one, truly believe in it. I believe that first you need to speak it, and then the first act of actually making it physical in reality is writing it down. So I think that's extremely powerful.
Yeah, everybody, whenever you are listening in on these webinars, or if you're listening to this podcast, I sound like a broken record, but you have got to have a notepad and you got to have a pen. So take notes. After you take notes, do exactly what Matt did and start writing down your goals. Super important. So anyways, just wanted to mention that real quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love these ones that are a little bit more longer term. They're achievable, but they still kind of feel like kind of lofty, I bet, when you wrote it down, Matt. So
I had nothing.
So I know that one's going to feel amazing when you cross it off.
Absolutely. Well, it feels amazing right now just being here. And and I am a proponent of just writing down every goal, just seeing them every day. I just read them every single morning. So I know where I'm headed for that day. And if I feel like taking a day off and doing whatever the heck I want to do and being about it, the goals keep me in line. I'm like, no, I've got to be here doing this.
I love it. Well, so we gave the people some esoteric value. I hope you guys are taking notes, literally. Let's rewind a little bit. So, Matt, why don't you let them know your name, kind of where you're from, and then we'll kind of get into the intro story here.
All right. My name is Matthew Bennet. I live in Erie, Pennsylvania, and I am a landlord of traditional rentals, and I started the group home project about a year ago. And that's basically it. I've got a podcast, so I do a lot of personal development stuff, which is all what led me here where I am today anyways, is all just working hard on myself and who I am. So yeah, that's, and I love the fact that my real estate has taken me to a place where I am helping people. And I'm actually, like, as I put these homes together, I'm able to put personal development like posters on the wall and have people ask me about them and talk through all of this stuff that I've learned. I'm able to pour a little bit of myself into these group homes.
I love that. Yeah, I love when people put their personal touch on their homes. Let's talk real estate then. I know that's what you started out with, and I'm sure that's how you found us, but it sounds like it was quite a while before you found Group Home Riches. How long you been doing real estate, and what was that business looking like before you found us?
So I bought my first property in January of 2022. And then I quickly just scaled that and grew out till I had 20 units. Once I had 20 units, I kind of tried to settle down. And it's interesting, during that time, I was trying to be like an online guru or marketer, personal development guy. Like, I was really pushing for that. And so I'm making this money from real estate, but it didn't seem sexy. Like the online world is what seemed sexy. And I was like, come on. I was pushing, and so just not liking real estate, but that's actually where I was making my money. That is what made me say, you know what? It's because I'm reading all these books on marketing. I'm reading all these books on how to do things online. That is what was keeping real estate not seeming sexy. So I made a commitment I think it was last October, mid-October, when I said, I have to focus on real estate. I want my input. I want to change my input. I want to read books on real estate. I want to listen to real estate podcasts. I want to just focus on real estate and see if I can actually enjoy being part of that instead of just having it be a job. And yeah, that is when I started listening to a few real estate podcasts. And on one of them, I think it was the Real Estate Guys podcast, I heard about Residential Assisted Living Academy. This story is not going to be new to you guys. I hear it all the time, but Residential Assisted Living Academy. Now, I went a step further. I paid $1,500 last November for their online course. And then a few days later, you guys popped up in Google because I was searching and researching. And I went with you and never looked back. So you guys are the best $1,700 I ever spent.
What did you buy of our products? I'm just curious to know, because most people will start out, with the gold course, which I think is like $179. And,
Yes.
Everybody else's stuff is 10x that amount. So I'm just curious, what did you wind up doing with us?
Well, no, I got the gold course, and I had to spend the $1,500 with Residential Assisted Living Academy to get you guys to pop up on my feed.
Gotcha.
So I was adding those two things together.
Okay, cool.
And I actually never even took that other course because I was so intrigued by everything that happened here and I started going through the gold course almost immediately. And so yeah, here we are.
So he got the kind of the learning tax by the other guys, which are great. They're great, and we'll talk about the difference here in a little bit. But yeah, Matt's just walking proof. We do have coaching products. We have the Done With You program, which is a lot more intensive, almost like the partnership program. But I know you inquired about that, Matt, but I thought just after learning your background that you kind of had the real estate already. It seemed like you had the marketing rocking and rolling. I thought that you didn't even need the coaching stuff. We were just, Matt's got the gold course and just been utilizing that free online chat service that comes with it. So he's a walking testament to that.
Yeah, that in the podcast, and you don't really need anything else. And you guys are there to answer my questions if I'm struggling.
Yep. We'll get into those struggles in a little bit. First, for the folks, maybe they are, in the beginning of their journey, they're doing their research online. They're wondering, what kind of license do I need to get? They're seeing all this other information out there. Do you know the difference between kind of what we teach and what RAL and kind of the other, I think the majority of the other folks kind of teach? Why don't you break that down a little bit?
Well, with residential assisted living, it is a lot of making sure that you're licensed and qualified for this and qualified for that. And you have to have 24/7 service in the house where you're running services. You've got to hire people. And so the money's good because, in those you can get like $5,000 a month, $4,000 a month for the people. But you've got this gigantic entire business with licensing and fees and like 6 or 7 employees. If you've got 10 people in the house and you've got to run 3 shifts, it gets pretty daunting. And so the numbers don't work out as well as I wanted them to. And the time spent, I mean, you have to be, I would have been buying myself a full-time job if I had done that, where with everything that you teach with Group Home Riches, and as it turns out, it's completely true, you can just start this house. You can just start a house, get the stuff in it that you need, make sure that you have, when you're studying, especially in the gold course, the license agreement, and just clearly having all your ducks in a row based on what you teach in the gold course. You can cash flow really well with minimal work. I mean, you still have to be hands-on till you get to get a manager, but you can be cash flowing exceptionally well. I'm happy with it.
What was the licensing process or certification process like to start that?
There was no licensing process. I just started the house.
Yeah.
So I took one of my rental houses. I had just evicted a family who was not paying the rent, and then realized even if I get a family in here, I'm going to be making like $100 a month if nothing goes wrong.
If nothing goes wrong. Sorry to interject, but that is, Brandon, are we doing this just via video, or is this going to be up on YouTube for people to see?
Yeah, we'll have the video version on YouTube, and if for folks listening on Spotify, we'll kind of explain what's going on the screen. But
Brandon, while we're talking, I'm going to send you guys over some photos, or I'm going to send them to Brandon. He can post them up here because I'm kind of a Luddite when it comes to this stuff. He can post some photos of what properties often look like after families move out, just for the fun of it.
yeah, shoot them over to my email, Andy.
Okay.
While you do that, so that's kind of what I wanted to get into next, Matt. Kind of talk about your transition from like traditional real estate to this. What kind of caught your eye about getting even into the shared living model? You know, why'd you go from being a traditional landlord to looking into this shared housing type stuff?
Well, so I don't know if I want this to get out too much, but you know what? Erie, Pennsylvania does cash flow pretty well with traditional rentals if you're doing it right. You know, we cash flow like a lot more than the numbers you throw out. And I do look around the country to see about buying places outside of my town, and the cash flow is, almost non-existent. So the cash flow is pretty good on my traditional rentals. But for me, one of the things that happened was I hooked up with an organization who places the immigrants who are coming into our city. And I established a really, really good relationship with them because of a couple things that I've done for them. I'm the first guy they call when they have a new family coming in to see if I have any places open. And so I turned it into this, it's just this system where if I have an empty house, I haven't advertised a place for probably a year and a half. I have not had to put anything on the market because when somebody moves out, I just turn the place over, call MCRC, and then even if they say they don't have somebody coming for 6 weeks, I save it for them. I liked that part of it, and I liked the part about helping people who are having a hard time finding housing. And so even though the cash flow is way better, probably for me, the most important thing is the fact that I do feel like I'm helping people when I'm doing this.
Love that.
Yeah, because it sounds like you got into, you're into the self-development space. I'm guessing the motivation for that was to help people, whereas a lot of the typical real estate stuff is literally just, it's purely for profit most of the time, especially like wholesaling, flipping, and stuff like that. So I can see that. I can see why with your personality you were drawn to it. So you almost got a taste of the marketing. Kind of, it sounds like you fell into it a little bit. Did they contact you, or did you contact them? Sounds like probably a nonprofit or social service organization in your area.
I purchased another duplex, and the person who sold it to me said, "Hey, I'm moving, so that's why I'm selling this. But there's this organization who's been trying to get me to let immigrants stay here. If you want quick tenants, you should give them a call." And that's how all that started.
When you were reading through like the beginner's guide here in the course, that probably clicked when we talk about finding those social service organizations, the nonprofits in your area. I bet you that made a lot of sense.
It absolutely did. I do want to recommend right here that everybody do that. Just start making the phone calls. I was like, whatever, this savvy investor who had this house, and I'm like, okay, well, other people need to start because they don't have houses. I've already got the house. So I put off making the calls and put it off and put it off. And I just kept putting off making the calls. And part of it is because my cash flow could sustain that loss. It was probably laziness on my part and maybe a little bit of fear about just reaching out to a bunch of people. I still don't like to do it, but I also know that it's necessary. And the people's reactions when they hear that you have places are incredible. They're like, wow, okay. They're happy when you call them. This isn't like you're trying to call somebody and selling some additional health insurance. You're calling to say, you call these organizations, the nonprofits, and what they're doing all day is they're sitting at their desk wishing somebody would be making this phone call that you're about to make.
Exactly.
They're sitting at their desk saying, I wish that somebody would call me and just say, hey, I've got a house for all these people you're trying to place.
Why we hammer it so much in the school group and on the webinars and stuff like that. I get it. You touched on it. Have you done sales before?
Just in-store sales for like lawnmowers and stuff. That was really my only sales.
Yes, but even, savvy real estate investor, people that have had, sales experience, there is still that kind of fear and putting off, making the calls or doing the reach outs. But that really is the key in the beginning is connecting with these nonprofits, which cool. We'll get like a real life picture of that. So you got the lead, you called the nonprofit up. I'm sure they were extremely happy to talk with you.
Absolutely. Yes. They placed somebody within like a week of me calling them. And then they just kept calling and saying, do you have any more? Let us know when you have more open. Can you please let us know? And we brought in, so I'm housing in those probably about 30 immigrants in my regular duplexes.
Beautiful. Do the organizations pay for that?
The nonprofit pays for up to 6 months. They start self-paying because we have to give them time to get jobs and get acclimated and get services if they need them, or some kind of other monetary support to pay the rent.
Beautiful. Yeah. So this is what we talk about when we're speaking about marketing. Maybe that particular organization, they're probably working with families the majority of the time, I'm guessing.
Yes.
It's still the same process. You call these places up, get some information. What do they do? Even if it is a place that only strictly works with families and you don't do families and shared housing, you can still get that relationship. Eventually, maybe you do get into, duplexes, multifamilies, and you do want to start working with the organizations. You can, let them know that. Almost paint the picture like what we do for our done with you clients is we just say, hey, we're a new real estate company. Plan on getting a couple properties in the next 6 to 12 months. We see you have a blah, blah, blah program, and we're just calling to get more information. It's that simple. Once you can get over the nervousness, once you can find the places, once you can actually sit down and make the calls and do the follow-ups, you guys will have these contacts like Matt is talking about and about to talk about. So you connected with that organization for the traditional, rental properties that you had. How did you get into the shared housing space?
That was that house that I was talking about where I evicted people from. I was just trying to figure out what I was going to do with that place because I owed a private lender the money on that. And it's hard to do a DSCR refi with no lease. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly how I'm going to make that happen. And it was almost a coincidence that I found residential assisted living, and I've got this Airbnb that I was thinking about doing the residential assisted living with. But then I was like, could I do residential assisted living with this other place? And then I kind of said, no, it's not in the greatest condition for that. It's it's a decent house, but all the bedrooms are upstairs and things like that. But then I found you. And it just clicked as soon as I started. I think I did, like, you guys have a free course at the beginning, right? A free course that I signed up for and got like 4 or 5 emails.
Yeah, just breaking down the basics. Why you don't need a license, why would you even do this, the opportunity, how to manage it. So yeah, we basically give all the basics, answer those general questions, and guys sign up for that at grouphomeRiches.com. So yeah, we have a free 5-part course that you would have signed up for.
So in going through that free course, I said, you know what, this house would be perfect for that. Let me see if this will work. So I bought the gold course after I was through all the free course. I bought the gold course, and just the more I read and the more I listened and went through the course, the more everything lined up perfectly to turn this house into a group home.
Beautiful. And we have you here in the wins section of the school group. So why don't we talk about that first property, and then we'll kind of give the folks kind of a higher level on kind of what they can expect in that first year. So got the course, you had the property, probably had to do a little bit of rehab since it was an eviction. Why don't we get into that first property? How many bedrooms? Talk about that process to actually get stuff started.
Okay. The first house was pretty spacious with 4 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms. And so I put 7 people in there. One of the bedrooms was too small to fit 2 twin beds. Like it would just fit 1 twin bed and a dresser. So I kept that as one room. The other ones are shared. And I just, furnishing it was not that big a deal. I could have probably now that I know more, I could have spent a lot less furnishing it. But I do have, like, I can get a bed from Amazon starting with 0 beds. Now I can get the bed frame and the mattress and the sheets and blanket and and the mattress protector. All of that, I've narrowed it down to it's under $200 a bed for a twin XL. So
yeah, that's if you want to do it quick, if you have the budget, but you can totally bootstrap this stuff if folks out there are on a really tight budget.
And on that note, let me interrupt. So guys, if you've listened to enough of these podcasts, you know, when I first started doing this, I didn't have any money. I did have real estate, but I really didn't have any cash. And yes, this may sound a little bit, you know, people might say, oh, that's not the right way to do things. Things are what they are. My primary goal was to make money. My secondary goal was to help people. There were mattresses that I could get at the auction at the Salvation Army, basically for free. And you could say, oh, they're used mattresses. Well, let me tell you what, I slept on a used mattress from the time I was 18 until the time I was probably 27 that I picked up when I was living basically in a group home with 7 of my friends. We didn't call them group homes, but we just rented a property and we split it up and had a couple people in a room. And the mattress that I slept on and kept for probably 10 to 15 years until my girlfriend at the time was like, that's disgusting. You're going to get scabies, was a mattress that I took out of the garage. And again, this is like 1996. So my point is, used mattress, big deal. Free mattresses, guys. You know, if you don't have any money, you don't necessarily need to be going out and getting brand new mattresses. If you have the means, by all means, Matt obviously did. But if you don't, guys, people are putting out mattresses on the side of the road for the garbage collectors to pick up. If it's a nice looking house, it's probably a clean mattress. Disinfect it yourself and let your clients sleep on it.
People spend about $200 per night on average to sleep in used beds at hotels. So
great point. Yes. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. One of our older podcasts, William, he furnished a ton of properties just by contacting hotels and getting donations from them.
I love that.
Yeah, people in our school group, they talk about just, you know, advertising on Facebook Marketplace. If you just rent a U-Haul, you could probably drive around based on like the Craigslist free section, and you can get pretty much everything you need. So you could totally bootstrap this stuff. But if you do have the funds, it's a lot easier. Like Matt did, just hop on Amazon, spend a couple $100, maybe. How much did you spend in total, do you think, to furnish that first property, Matt?
Probably $2,500 to furnish everything. I was getting a lot of used stuff and a lot of donations just from a Facebook post saying what I need.
There we go. How much would you have to spend to get it ready with the residential assisted living facility?
For 7 bedrooms, it would have probably been $10,000 or more.
Yeah, that's not counting the sprinkler system.
And that's true. I didn't even think about that part.
Yeah. So you had to get it cleaned up. How long did it take for you to kind of get it occupied?
It was occupied to cash flowing with the first 3 people. And that probably only took 2 months. And once again, it was that I think if I had moved faster, it would have gotten together faster. One of my downfalls sometimes, and this is, you know, with a lot of things, is that I will just put it off because I trust, because it's not bleeding me too much. So I just kind of put it off and do other things. But, you know, once I start looking at the numbers and going, okay, I'm losing like $600 a month just owning this property. I got to do something about it. So I jumped on, got a couple months. It had 3 people in it, which is all that it needed to be just over break even. And then within another month probably, it had all 7 people. I had 7 people filling it and cash flowing pretty nicely.
What changed? What'd you do differently from, when you were kind of putting it off to that month to where it got filled up?
I was making calls. I was putting out, when I started trying to figure it out, I created this flyer based on a lot of the emails and flyers that you guys had in the material in the gold course. And I just put my own together and started putting it out there everywhere. And then I called some organizations. Mostly it was the VA at the beginning who was helping me get stuff in there. So I was calling, making contacts with the VA and actually with the veterans themselves who were in this house. Now, I don't just do veterans, but that's just how it ended up starting. The first 3 veterans that came in, well, they have all these friends at the VA and like the Veterans Leadership Program who they just talked about this group home to, so more people wanted to come. So word of mouth from the residents helped a lot.
Andy, do you want to expound on that? A very powerful marketing tool.
Brandon, give me more detail on what you'd like me to talk.
So he had basically one contact at the VA, got the first couple of people in there, and then from there it spread. It sounds based off of one kind of major contact, Matt.
Yes, off of one major contact.
Yeah, I mean that's been my experience with this. This has been my experience working with all the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that we work with. You get in there and you might have to put a couple of lines out into the pond, the proverbial pond. But the minute that you catch one nurse, one social worker, one caseworker that, for whatever reason does want to work with you, boom, they wind up telling everybody and the thing just spreads like wildfire.
Nice. I am actually trying to get my local shelter. It's the city mission here. I want them to walk through it. I've been going back and forth with this guy, and I just remember hearing from you guys, follow up. So I'm, because he'll get back to me and say, yeah, I really want to see this place. I just got really busy. And then if I wait 2 weeks and then another 2 weeks, it's not going to happen. So
It's not. Yeah. You have the money's in the follow-up. And what we really try to tell everybody, all the Gold Course students, one-on-one coaching students, everybody, is it may sound polite to follow up in a week or in 2 weeks, but you're really just shooting yourself in the foot. You actually have the ability to impact people's lives and help people out. And by the way, you're going to help out that caseworker, the shelter manager, whomever it is. You've got to follow up with them relentlessly, and you just have to. Now, the minute that you are able to get them on the phone, you got to close them and get them out to your place. Then the minute you've got that relationship built up with them, they're going to tell all their friends, all their colleagues, all their co-workers, and they're going to start calling you. So I think that's kind of rule number 1. But the other thing that you have to do, you've got to build up your email list. Building up that email list is critical, because the minute that you have 10 people on it, 50 people on it, 100 people on it, 5,000 people on it. And trust me, if you're working in a large enough county, there are 5,000 nurses, caseworkers, social workers, and doctors that are working with people with behavioral health issues and what have you. And I mean, all it takes is one email and you've got 5 houses filled up.
Absolutely.
Matt, how many like total marketing contacts would you say that you have that you could market to?
Right now, about 300. And
that's awesome.
Yeah. And a lot of them I do have to call, because a lot of the scraping that I did to get some of these contacts did not render an email. That's kind of a slow process, but I'm getting ready. I'm trying to prepare exactly what I'm going to say for this new house that I just bought that's going to take 19 people. I'm just trying to ramp up the marketing for that.
Beautiful. We'll get into that in a sec. I want to kind of just circle back a little bit to where we were talking about the follow-up, and this is totally relevant because you're going to need to be doing this, Matt. And you've gotten a little taste of it, but if you go listen to the good, bad, and ugly live Q&A we did for our school members with me and Andy, we really dived into kind of how these social service organizations work, how they can be slow, they're kind of bogged down, they're bureaucratic, and Andy nailed it. The money is in the follow-up. We follow up for our done with you clients. We follow up about every 48 hours with those top organizations just to get that first meeting. So I remember one client, I have the screenshot of it. I'll need to get it, but we had 40 something messages back and forth before we got a contract with them.
Wow.
Then that's on top of like the Zoom meetings, the scheduling, the showings, right? So I think a lot of people really underestimate how much they can do in marketing. And I think that kind of goes with every business. So you have your solid contacts that were responsive and, sending you people, and then all this other stuff that you probably could be doing and will be doing for this big property.
Absolutely. One of the most fun things I think that happens here is when I get a call from out of the blue from another case manager that's working with a different organization saying, I heard about what you're doing. Can we talk about it?
Yeah.
But in order for that to happen, you have to be out there telling people about yourself.
Yeah, your snowball has just started to roll. you're starting to see that. I bet you it's related to this, but you said looking back, I know you said this in email, that looking back, there were a couple things that you would have done differently. Why don't you speak on that? Why don't you touch on that? What would you have done differently in the beginning?
So the two major things that I would have done differently is I wish that I had started making these calls while I was rehabbing the first house. Just in the month that took to get it ready to go, I wish that I had been making calls so that I could just fill it up from organizations, because this leads to my next one. Fill it up from organizations who are sending people there, people who are funded by the government or nonprofit, and people who have case managers. Because, for the second house, which we haven't talked about, but the second house with 5 beds, I did that because I was getting a lot of outside people hearing about me and just calling. And so I did put it in with 5 self-paying people, and that's okay. But as far as collecting the rents, I'm okay collecting the rents from 5 people and having one of them be late. And so far, nothing's come back to bite me. But I know that if I have 40 people who are self-paying, that's going to come back to bite me. So
yeah, 100%.
So the next step in all of this is for me to just strictly say from the beginning, from now on, we're just taking clients who are funded.
Yep.
And if some special exception occurs, I'm willing to make that leap. But other than that, the general principle for my organization moving on is we are looking for people who they can't even make enough money to self-pay. That's how we know we're helping the right people.
Of the people that are on self-pay are...
Sorry, I said it. Did I say it wrong?
No. The people. So yeah. So the people. We'll break it down here for the newbies listening, but typically, I don't know, Andy, would you say about 90% of your payments come either through the SSI Rep Payee program and or nonprofits?
Yes, they do. It's changed up a little bit as I've gotten bigger. And the reason I say that is because a lot of the stuff that we're doing right now is, what I've been doing, frankly, just because in a lot of, there's been so much migration here to North Texas that, in and around the DFW area, that the property values have skyrocketed. The property values have skyrocketed, the property insurance has skyrocketed, and so it makes it a little bit more difficult to run these things as profitably as it used to. And so, I've been transitioning into larger buildings. So for sake of argument, if I've got an 80-unit building, I no longer have 100% of the clients in that building that are on SSI or SSDI, if that kind of makes sense.
On the shared housing, so like the residential group homes, especially when that was really rocking and rolling.
Oh yeah. On the residential group homes, absolutely. I mean, basically everybody, 98% of those people are going to have rep payees. I'm not messing around. with taking people that are self-pay, private pay?
Yeah, I break it down almost into two categories. You have your like the nonprofits, the social service organizations that'll pay, and then you have other folks that are quote unquote self-pay, but they get SSI, and then through that you have them go through a rent payee. So that was my next question to you, Matt, of the people that are self-pay. And for the listeners, by self-pay, we mean, they're not it's not a voucher or, there's not an organization paying for them. How many of those are any of those people are on SSI or SSDI?
In my self-paying people, most
Yes.
of them, I think every single one of them right now
Okay.
is
So
on
this
every
is, this is what we, tell our coaching clients and people like that, or anybody that acquires. It is totally up to you. You could let them, pay and assume they're going to pay you on the first of the month. That's fine. But what we recommend is you require them to go through an approved representative payee, which we don't need to break it down, today. We don't need to get into the weeds, but that's how we typically recommend folks to get set up. So sounds like you haven't had any issues with that yet, but you're just extrapolating into the future, imagining 40 people like that are on limited income, and, you just end up becoming another stressed out landlord.
Exactly. That is not what I want to do. And the best way that I can help people is knowing without worry that money's coming in. Because then the whole focus of my mind can be somewhere else. It can be on making this thing better, making sure that I have the team around me to help these people out with, I don't go overboard, but help them out with anything that they need, like immediately making sure that something gets fixed instead of letting it sit for, if somebody says the shower is broken, I don't want to go 3 weeks later and go check it out. I'd love to get right over there immediately. But you have to make sure the money's there and you're not constantly worried about the money, before you can easily just take care of those problems during the day, make the right calls and all that.
Probably a lot of the social service organizations that are on your list might offer that service. This one looks like one. So for the video listeners, I just did it live. Just looked up representative payee in Pennsylvania, and this looks like an organization that offers that service. So, when you are scaling, when you do get these folks that are on SSI and they want to move in, that's what we do. Okay, great. We require you to go through an approved representative payee. Here's Roads to Freedom. Here's their number. Here's their email. And that's
Okay.
it. It says that in the license agreement, it breaks that down too.
Well, if you want, then that's another thing that I struggle with. I mean, at what point do you tell these people that they need to go through a rep payee?
ASAP. Once you have enough people that are on your list and your properties are full, why are you even, I mean, this is me talking, this is the way that we kind of advise everyone. If
Right.
your marketing is good enough, you don't need to take any self-pay people. Now, that assumes that you're going after the demographic that I've always gone after. But remember, you can take the gold course and you can kind of customize it to whatever you want to do. So like, for example, this morning we were on a coaching call, an early morning coaching call with a guy that does this down in Arizona. He's tweaked it a little bit. And what he does, he goes after the student housing people down near in Tempe, Arizona. He's buying $600,000 homes, right? $600,000 homes, $150,000 down, and that's the route that he's going. So he's not going out to kind of like a more working class grade within Phoenix. He's doing like higher, more upskill stuff, but he's still following all the same rules and techniques that we teach in the gold course and, kind of coaching. But none of his people are going to have rep payees, but in some respects they kind of do because they're 18, 19, 20-year-old people. And who's guaranteeing the rent? Mommy and daddy.
Yep. Okay. Well, that makes sense. That's good. I mean, so yeah, because that's going to be a learning process for me. I did take the gold course and try to kind of mold it, the principles into what I wanted to do. But I know now that I want to go back to what you taught and really just use the rep payee. So I'm in the process of starting to say, okay, at what point do I tell them? Do I wait? Do I do it when I show them? Do I make sure they know before they ever come see it? Like you said, as soon as possible. So,
And Matt, if I may, one of the reasons why I'm a big advocate of this is because eventually we want to take all of our students from cradle to grave, where cradle is, hey, let's just go out and rent a property, put people in there, and like build up your business acumen. Okay. So starting off, that's what we want them doing. We don't want them having to, be tough guys going out, management, trying to collect in C grade neighborhoods, right? It's a lot easier if these people are, when I say these people, I'm talking about clients, are collecting. They don't really have to collect if they're just working with people that have got rep pays. So that's kind of step number one. And then step number two, we want to help them basically graduate up to your level. Your level is the real estate ownership level, right? And the reason we want them doing that is so they can not only have the equity that they're building in their group home business, but also the equity in the real estate. And then the reason why we tell them, hey, focus on these C grade areas is because if you go from like really shitty to less shitty, you're going to make a lot more money than if you go from like nice to like a little bit more nice, right? Buying a little house for $100,000 that could easily go to $300,000, you're going to make $200,000 and you're cash flowing the whole time. Versus buying a house that goes from $300,000 to like $450,000 it's a little bit more difficult on your pocketbook. And so anyways, but when you're dealing with that more like C grade element, you've got to have, without question, you got to have your people have rep pays.
okay.
We have the licensee agreement pulled up from the gold course. And for listeners, viewers, what this is it's basically the house rules and legalese. And Matt, just the standard template, it'll say something in there that you're required to go through an approved rep payee. And then there's a section where you can list that if you want. So Andy, we don't have to do like typical role play or whatever, but what would you do or your operational managers do if, let's say, you're talking to the potential guest and they're on SSI and you're going over the house rules with them? One, when do you do that? And two, what would you do or your operational managers do if they say, oh, I don't really want to do that. I don't really want to go through the rep payee. It's a hassle.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, you're going to have to go find a rental somewhere else. I mean, we go over all this in the gold course. There are techniques and strategies for marketing. There's techniques and strategies for selling. One of the techniques and strategies when you're selling, especially to this demographic, is something where you basically say, sorry, sir, sorry, ma'am, you're not going to be able to do that. That's not the way that we operate. And you're kind of taking the opportunity away from them. You're just being honest more than anything else. But it is a strategy and it's a technique because most of these people at that point are going to realize, holy Toledo, Andy's property is the only one out there that is going to accept me, that is going to take me. All I need to do is go talk to the Salvation Army or one of these rep payee companies and give them access to my money. These are large corporations, large nonprofits. They're not going to do anything illicit. They're just going to help me better manage my money so that Andy or Matt or whomever the client is or group homeowner is knows that they're going to get paid. It's a very, very, very reasonable request.
Yeah, and I'll do it when I was kind of more boots on the ground and actually interacting with them, like interacting with leads, Matt. I would just bring it up basically on the first inquiry, like, hey, just want to be up front. This is a co-living situation. There are house rules that you need to adhere to. For example, we have a curfew of 10 p.m., 11 p.m., whatever it is. You have to clean up after yourself. No drugs or alcohol. We accept vouchers or funding from nonprofits or folks who are set up with a rep payee. Wherever you work that into what your process is, your typical intake process. But I would do it right from the beginning, letting them know just the basics, shared housing. What you inquired about is for a roommate situation. Here's an example of the types of rules. And then handle the rep payee the same as you would if someone says, oh, I like to stay up late and drink and smoke weed. What are you, what are you gonna do to somebody like that?
We're not a fit for you.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of that simple. And if they do go back and forth with it, then you know why you think to yourself, why would they really be hesitant to get set up for a guaranteed check? They're almost like giving themselves an out if they, well, you know, if I have a bad month, I want to be able to bounce. That's
Right.
really the only thing it comes down to, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, and this is really good information that I'm getting here, because I do agree, I guess, that it starts with the marketing. And if I had, from the very beginning started this, I would have already been where I am. So basically, I'm backtracking to try to figure out something that you told me to do in the gold course from the very beginning.
yeah,
Which is it's good. I mean, just hopefully your listeners here use me as the example of what not to do here, and say, I'm just going to get out, start making all the calls, because if you've got a waiting list of 40 people for a house of 10, it's going to be easier to say, hey, we only take people who are willing to either sign up with a rep payee or you're funded by some other means.
yep. And keep in mind, folks, even if Matt didn't do absolutely everything that's recommended, right? He's just, taking pieces, seeing what works for him, not doing the marketing, 100%, which again, we tell you guys a lot of stuff that you could be doing. We got 2 properties filled, rocking and rolling. You got the 3rd property sounds online. So why don't we talk about the wins?
All right.
Let's break this down for him.
I was just looking for a property, and I'm also a real estate agent. I don't use my license to help people buy or sell. I just used it because I was coaching other agents. But one of my friends wanted to go look at this funeral home that was for sale. And so I said, well, okay, I can get you in. We can go walk through it. But if you want to buy it, you're going to have to find another agent. So we went and looked at this thing, and he decided that he didn't want it. But I went in there and I was like, this would be a friggin' amazing group home. Like, the way that the rooms are laid out, the way that they're separated, there's a common hall, there's a place for like AA meetings or whatever kind of meetings we want to have to go in there. So I went through and counted where can I put bedrooms, just did my general due diligence on the property, the roof, the basement, all of that. And I made an offer like within a week of seeing it. I was like, this is perfect. I'm going to make this happen.
And that's the one that's all right. So 10 rooms.
Yes.
That is awesome.
Do you want to give a kind of rough, kind of bird's eye view of the numbers, what those would look like?
Yeah. I'm going to go over to my document that I have for that just to read from it. So there's 3 rooms that I'm going to do as private rooms, and those are $750 a month. And then, yes, and then I'm doing $575 for the rest of the rooms, $575 a month for the rest of the rooms. I'm buying the property for $140,000.
Wow.
Dude, and how big is it?
It's 5,200 square feet, 10 rooms.
Wow. Wow. I love that. I love that.
Yes. So at getting it 140,000, and I think I'm borrowing 175 on it just so that I can rehab it really quickly. So even at those numbers, my monthly cash flow, like profit cash flow, I know sometimes people get that wrong and they just think cash flow is gross, but the monthly cash flow, all profit, is 5640.83.
Fantastic.
So yes, I think it's fantastic too.
Brandon, since we are recording that, can you just put that up on the screen with your calculator, and we can just, because sometimes I feel like people hear things, but everybody's a little bit different. Some people are auditory, some people are auditory learners, some people are visual learners. Let's actually run gross numbers and net numbers. So you got 575 in the shared rooms, right?
Yes. And then, so yeah, 575 in the shared rooms. One of the private rooms is 600 because it's smaller. And then there's 2 rooms at 750. So basically, I mean, the gross of all of the rooms, is that what you want? Because it's 11.
Yeah, just do that to make it easy for everyone, Brandon.
$11,300 coming in.
So this is, guys, this is total gross revenue. So That's with, a mixture of private rooms, shared beds, etc. He gave you the pricing for those. So this is the total amount of money coming in per month on like a hard money loan, private loan of
What 165? Yeah, 165 is what it's going to be, and so that's and for me that's 1650 a month.
and then that leaves a ton of extra money for bills and maintenance. Do you have like maybe a house supervisor discount or operational manager or anything like that?
I will just give them one of the private rooms, and so that's probably going to be maybe $300 or $400 a month stipends, depending on how I do this, and then a free room.
Okay. So there's still a ton of extra money here, just miscellaneous expenses,
Yes.
which was about like 4,000. It's a lot. Was this what was the total profit?
5640. So yeah,
Oh wow.
you really nailed that with a guess. I'm pretty impressed.
so this is the net, guys. This is Andy, what's the most important number that we just talked
The
about?
net spendable income per month is the only thing that matters. Everybody likes to brag about how much they're renting it for, or blah, 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 blah. The only thing that matters is how much your net free cash flow is that's coming in every month that you can spend on margaritas, on food, on shelter, on vacations, on your kid going to school, on whatever it is. It needs to be spendable income that you focus on, not your gross. Yeah, one property, $67,000.
I
think that was pretty conservative numbers there.
Yeah, I do want to add to this that's at 80% occupancy. So I've got 20% vacancy credit loss.
Yes.
Built into the numbers. So that's at 80% occupancy. That's $67,800 a year.
Yeah, I figured you had a bunch of conservative stuff built in there, which is beautiful, by the way. And you said you actually have some very healthy landlord buy and hold properties.
Yes.
I could be wrong, but this is still probably about 10x what your typical good properties do.
Yeah, I mean, like I've got a 4-unit so I'm cash flowing about $400 per unit on my units. So if I buy a duplex, it's about $800. So it's not bad, and it is less hands-on. And actually, one of the things I don't want to give them up just because there's immigrants in there. Like if that whole thing stopped and I had to go find tenants and do all this, I'm going to turn everything I have into a group home.
Well, I'll tell you what, look what happened in New York. Eric Adams the other day said, hey, no more of this stuff. So it is another, I think you're being very smart with that. It is an unbelievable option for the average real estate owner to have. I mean, it gives you a lot of additional optionality, right? I mean, if you're normally accustomed to just renting out regular properties or Airbnbs or whatever it is, you set up one or two of them as group homes, see how you like it. And if you like it, like if anything happens to your other stuff, you just start converting them to group homes. There is so much demand for this type of housing. It's insane.
I would say Matt is relatively crushing it as a landlord, but that means about $400 in profit per door.
Yeah.
Correct? Guys, I can't explain how much that's crushing. Andy, what's the typical, buy and hold rental property?
No, Matt, quick question. Is that you making your $400 a month? Is that with debt or without debt?
Oh, that $400 a month is after paying the mortgage. If that's what
you've got mortgages on them. I mean, that's very, very, very impressive. Most people are not going to be able to do that. What are property taxes in Erie, Pennsylvania?
They're pretty high.
What kind of percentages as a percent of value?
I've never looked at that, but let's just say if I've got a $50,000 house, taxes are probably $1,500.
Okay. Yeah. So you're going to be right about that. Yeah, 3% range, which is high. So I don't know. Maybe they're just not. Maybe your valuations by your tax assessor haven't gone nuts yet. I don't know. But Where your cash flow and your model gets broken, where you almost are required to go into group homes, is when that $50,000 property that you just talked about goes to 150,000 or 250,000. Because all of a sudden that thing is now valued at 250,000. And if you're paying 3%, whatever 303% of $250,000 is, it's going to be about $7,000 or $8,000 a year. And now all of a sudden you were making $400 a month. Now you're losing a couple $100 a month, right? Because taxes alone are $600 or $700 a month.
Right.
Just get hammered. And it's awesome because the value has gone up a lot, but it's not good because your cash flow has gone down. So then everything changes, right? And so now you're at the point, and this will probably eventually happen. All it takes is one more nasty bout of inflation, and the houses that you have go up by, 2, 3, 4x.
Right.
Right. But there's no way that your rents can go up by 4x unless the government starts giving monetary stimulus to your tenants. Right. So then you have two options. Either you sell and you move all that equity into a larger building, or you get into the group home business. Those are really your two options, because you're not going to be able to bump rents from $1,000 to $4,000 a month. It just maybe in 30 years, but not quickly, because it just people aren't going to be making 12. If you go at that 30% rate, people are not going to be making $12,000 a month. The average person in a working class neighborhood is not going to go from making 30 or 40,000 to make $30 or $40,000 a year to making 140 a year. It's just not going to happen. And then Brandon, these are the photos that I just sent you.
There's some other issues that you have to worry about with rental properties. That's kind of counterintuitive, but why don't we get into kind of the other advantages besides the cash flow, which is pretty obvious. We did the calculator for you guys. Why don't we talk about this? Why don't we talk about just how are you managing these things, and how do you avoid stuff like just a little bit of deferred maintenance is what we have on the screen for one of Andy's properties. So we'll come back to that. Matt, Andy, you want to tell the people what we're looking at here?
Yeah, I'll riff on it for a little bit. So this is a property that I bought about 1.5 years ago in a county a little bit outside of Dallas or whatever. So it's more of a lower income kind of county. Anyways, these people are in there. They're paying $500 a month. I think I bought it for about $60,000, just give or take. And it was fine. And my model, if you guys have heard me, I either run them as group homes, or if they're little houses, I'll finance them. I really, really, really like financing things because it alleviates a lot of the pain that comes with owning real estate. Long story short, they made their payments for give or take 1.5 years, 2 years, and then they quit making their payments. I think they quit making their payments in October. So filed an eviction on them, sent my guys over there, we kicked down the door, and I have no clue how people were living like this. No clue. But you guys can take a look at the photos. I mean, Brandon, go through it slowly just so everybody can see.
Yeah, this is crazy that they were able to do this in a year.
Yeah. And we're talking, this thing's rat infested. It's absolutely disgusting. So the difference between owning regular residential rentals and group homes is that with a group home, you've got a house manager that lives in a property that is in control of everything that you're talking to on a daily basis. You also have, if you've got, 10, 15 of these things, you've got somebody overseeing all of those individuals that are running your group homes. With regular rentals, the reality is if the money's coming in, I'm kind of, not really going to think about it. Now, oftentimes what I do is I have my assistant say, hey, are you changing the filter? But that's really about it. And we make them, text us a photo of it. But we should probably start making them text hey, you're going to be required to text us photos and videos of the inside of the properties on a monthly basis. But I've never implemented that. I need to, but I never have. Again, though, with your group homes, you're in there every single day. Guess who else is in there every single day? We talked about this on the webinar the other day. All of your nurses, all of your caseworkers, all of your social workers, because they're coming over every day or every 3 days or every 5 days to perform checks on a lot of your clients. So you're getting a lot more feedback. So it's a more operationally intensive business, but on the flip side of the coin, you know what's going on in the house and you're also getting paid for it. You're making a lot more money than you would. Now this property is free and clear. but I was making basically no money on this property. And funny enough, if you just do quick math on it, let's assume that I made, for sake of argument, over a 2-year period, I made $10,000. That's before insurance and before taxes. Okay. And let's assume that my taxes on that property were $3,000. Let's assume that my insurance was $1,000 over a 2-year period. So I'm left with $6,000. So the whole time I thought that I was cash flowing, but guess what? Now I have my tenant turnover and I'll spend easy $15,000 fixing up the property.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, it's rough. I feel lucky that I haven't had any. I mean, I've had some bad ones, but no major horror stories. And a lot of it has to do with kids being in there. I will say that is one of the enlightening and best things about the group home is that if I'm just driving by the place at 3 o'clock some afternoon and I feel like stopping in, I just go in.
Correct.
I don't have to knock. I don't have to give anybody 24 hours notice. I can go in and sit down and watch TV with them for 15 minutes.
Yes.
And then say, hey guys, see you later. and just get to see it. So it's like, in effect, it's still my house. When you rent and do a traditional lease, the laws are basically saying that's their space.
Yes.
From you.
Matt, you're spot on. There's a sense of control with owning group homes, and you walk in there like the boss, if that makes sense. And to your point, Matt, you just open up the door. And 9 times out of 10, because it's a group home, there's 4 people, 8 people, 10 people, 16 people living in the property, the door's open. So you just walk right on in. And everybody, again, I don't want this to come across negatively, but everybody is extremely respectful because they know, hey, there's the boss man. There's Matt right there. There's Matt. He's the boss man. You know, oh, let me make sure that the dishes are done, because they all have house chores. The property needs to be clean, needs to be tidy. You just can't do that on a regular rental property. The other thing that's different with a regular rental property is that not only does the law, as Matt just said, the law tells you this is the property of the tenant now, but those tenants, they know that, right? Versus in this business, in the group home business, it's like you're running a hotel, basically. So you have the ability to go into that property. Now, if somebody wants to lock their room, that's a different story. But getting into the property itself, you just walk right on in.
Yep, it's a beautiful thing. And it made me feel from the very beginning, once I realized that that's the way that it was going to be, I was way more comfortable with this. I can go in, if something's broken down, I can just send somebody over. You know, the guys needed a new stove last month, and I just said, well, I put those digital locks on all the doors in the group homes, and I have a one-time use code, so I can just set the code and then give it to the guy who's dropping off the new stove and removing the other one, and they can just go in. We don't have to set up a time. We don't have to. It's not hard at all. I just say, whenever you're ready, go on in, change the stove out. I'll tell the guys
You just touch on a key point, I think, Matt. A lot of investors out there, especially if they've been through stuff like this that Andy's dealt with, they're imagining, you know, not just one person that's going to keep the property up like this, but it could be possibly 10, right? They're imagining all the stuff you have to do to get into the property, right? So you have to schedule ahead of time. Sometimes they're not home when they're supposed to. You can't go in. We have what we call the licensee agreement. And guys, what this is really just the house rules that's in legalese. So Matt, Andy, they're not leasing the property to all of these people. You know, Matt doesn't have, 10 leases on each one property. You're simply licensing space. And with that, you have way more authority, like Andy said, and just way more control over the property. And yeah, you can, like they said, you could just walk in. You can have a house supervisor that's basically your tattletale that's in the properties. You can have cameras. Matt, do you have cameras in the homes or anything?
Don't have cameras yet, though. In talking to Eric, your coach Eric, he gave me a list. I said, look, I've got a home for 19 people coming up. I don't know what I don't know. Can you recommend anything to me? And he gave me this nice little list of, okay, with 19 people, here's all the things that you need to watch out for. So cameras were one of the things he recommended. So I'm going to be going with that.
Yeah. So again, just one of the many advantages. You have way more control over the property as long as you're not being a slumlord and you are, managing these things, or you have or like Eric, you have systems in place to where basically everything's automated. Eric is a beast, by the way. You don't have these issues. Andy, at the group homes, if there is somebody that, let's say they just keep their personal space looking like this and they don't adhere to your warnings or anything like that, what do you do?
You just throw them out. I mean, you're gone.
The eviction,
By the way, when I say you're gone, like you're gone.
not the 6 month
eviction. There's none of that riffraff. Literally pick their stuff up, throw it outside, you're gone.
Sorry, I cut you off a little bit, Andy, but I was saying not the typical 6 to 12 month eviction process.
No, not at all.
Yeah, so it says right here. And it's up to you how hard of a line you want to draw this, right? But if they're signing when they check in to the home, if they violate these rules, get in the boot.
Yeah, you're getting the boot. And Brandon, to your point, if I can make a quick comment on that, it is up to you as the operator how you want to deal with it. And I'll be fully transparent. We've had plenty of people that pay like clockwork and they're super duper duper messy, and we let them slide. That is the reality. Now, we let them slide until it starts impacting the remainder of the property and starts migrating over to other people, right? Because one bad apple will spoil the whole bunch. But, if we have somebody that's paying, because we do sometimes, hey, it's a $575 room rental, or we're not charging that cheap anymore, but $675 room rental, or not room rental, but bed rental. But we've got somebody with some special circumstances and we know they're going to be a little bit more of an issue. Yeah, it's $975, but they've got a rep payee and they're paying it like clockwork. The room's a mess. We let them stay.
Yeah, as long as it's not disrupting the home, sometimes that seems okay. And that is actually another interesting thing about going back to when Brandon, you were saying that the mess that you see in those pictures, you think that that's 8 times what it could be. But, if somebody leaves like their dishes in the sink from dinner, I'll get 4 text messages from the other people in the house.
Right.
For the most part, especially if you're interviewing well, for the most part, they're watching out for each other. I've got one guy that's saying to, another guy that's in the house that keeps it being messy. He's like, man, if you want to keep staying here, you got to keep that clean. If Matt comes in and sees this, man, you're going to be gone. You got to take care of this. And he's not my house manager. It's just an example of the people talking to each other and talking them through this process of living in a group situation.
Let me throw something else out, Brandon, at you, and also you, Matt, that I don't think I've really ever mentioned before, but this is so freaking true. If you can manage this business, and again, it's not that difficult to manage, but if you can manage, not really one group home because it's pretty easy to do, but if you get to the point where you're managing and overseeing 10 or 15 group homes, you can do anything because you're dealing with human beings and you're dealing with individuals and you're dealing with personalities, and you are going to get so good at reading people, so good at building teams, so good. You're building teams, building families when you put 4 people, 8 people, 15 people into a house. And you start understanding, how's this person think? How's he going to relate, or how is she going to relate to this woman, or what have you? You're gonna turn into a just amazing business person. So that is the other thing I like to throw out. You're building a lot of skills,
and that's one of the things that I try to ask myself, like, every month, like what skills do I need to make all of this easier, or all of this to come more naturally to me? And then I'll just take that month and get a book on those skills and go through it, try to pick up 1 or 2 things, and hopefully, after doing that for a couple years, just exponentially see myself grow.
Well, you're already doing it.
We've gone over kind of the beginning steps. We've gone over the advantages of this compared to typical investment properties. We've gotten to see a little bit of what house number 3 is going to be, and that's looking like it's going to be an absolute monster. So I know it feels like you're just getting going, Matt, but yeah, it sounds like the snowball's beginning to roll again. In theory, you just got started and absolutely crushing it.
Well, I
So
also just bought house number 4.
oh, nice.
So we're going to be closing on the same day with both of those, and that's a 4-bedroom.
Let's go. We need to work offline on the marketing. So I'm sure Eric probably helped out with the step by steps. I'll shoot you some stuff as well. Yeah, let's talk future. So it's been 1 year. You got 2 properties that seems like they're optimized. They're rocking and rolling. You got 2 coming up. What does it look like a year from now? What do you have written down on that goal sheet?
So far about that, I am still working out exactly what I want my goals to be, because I don't want to just throw out an arbitrary number like 10 houses. That goal sheet is going to say, I want to be housing 100 people in some kind of a group situation by the end of 2025. 100 people. Now, I also have some goals, like a lot of things. When you're doing this marketing, you end up with people calling you saying, well, what about a woman who's pregnant or a woman who has 2 kids? And so I'm trying to solve that problem too. I'm thinking about how could I do that in a way that, like the group home, would work financially? Because sure, I could buy a duplex and just decide not to cash flow anything and put these people in there, but that's not what I want to do. So future for me is trying to solve that problem, and then really just expanding as much as I can with the group homes. I mean, once I get this 19 bed, if it does end up cash flowing the $5,600 a month, which I have every confidence that it will, that's going to help me finance more purchases, and more purchases that I already have more equity in from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what ends up happening with this. And basically it skyrockets your cash flow. What you're normally accustomed to making from 10 rental properties, you start making off of 1 group home. So you get there 10 times as fast.
And I think your goals are extremely realistic, and you have pretty much proof of concept with it now. It's been a year. You're set up to have 4 properties. If you can pretty much replicate that next year, you'll be close. Maybe a little bit more, some fine tuning. I pulled this up just because you brought it up. So about like maybe housing families. So we did a podcast with Andrew. That will be out by the time people hear this recording, Matt. I'll send it to you as well. But Andrew's been doing that, and we touch on that in the podcast, that specific issue, because that is something I agree. There's a ton of demand for that, a lot of requests. There are ways to do it. We don't have a lot of people and examples of doing that. But again, that's just simple preference. Andrew?
Well, I'll check that. Yeah, I've talked to Andrew a few times in the school group, so.
Absolute beast. And again, guys, I'm giving you in live time stuff, that you can use the school group for. You can network with these people that you listen to on the podcast. You can search their names. You can search topics that you might have issues with. And I can say almost with a guarantee that at this point, pretty much every topic is going to be covered. And this school group is relatively new. So imagine when this thing grows.
Oh, yeah.
So
an amazing group. Being part of the school group and just being able to go look up and see what other people have done to handle the problems that I'm wondering about. There's a great thing in the school group about insurance and how to buy insurance if you're searching for what to do for insurance for your business. And it's great. There's a lot of key principles that we need to know are in there.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, the school group is becoming insanely valuable for only $10 a month, especially if you're active. So, and that's one of the things I like about you, Matt, is you had the gold course, and you were constantly inquiring, but they were with good questions. We will go out of our way to help people that we could tell are taking action, it wasn't just a year of back and forth with you asking me the FAQs that you could get for free.
Right.
Right.
Yes.
So, man, we love to see it. You've had a rocking first year. We've shown you guys that with the actual numbers. And again, I want to reiterate that Matt is just getting started. Would you agree, Matt? You feel like you're just kind of cracked the surface with this thing, right?
Absolutely. This really does feel like just the beginning. I still feel very green. I still have a ton to learn. Hopefully, I always will, but I still have a ton to learn. So I learned a lot just being on this podcast today, though.
Love it. Well, I'm glad you came on, man. We have to do an update here soon, next 6 to 12 months, kind of hear how the third and fourth property go. I think probably next year will probably be even bigger, especially once you get that feeling of greenery out of the way. I bet you'd absolutely take off.
Well, thank you. I think that's the plan. So I'm looking forward to this.
Excellent. Well, all right, Andy, do you have any parting words for the folks out there?
I do. Guys, it's the same thing I say all the time. The only regret you're going to have in life is not taking action. The most important thing that you can do right now is take action. It is so glaringly obvious where all of this is going. It's so freaking obvious. So take action, go rent a property, go take one of the properties that you currently own and set up a group home. Just do what Matt's doing. Take action.
Yeah, and guys, for anybody that's interested, I'll just kind of reiterate, if you're just discovering this on YouTube or Spotify and you have all these questions, just completely fuzzy about what we just talked about, go to grouphomeriches.com and sign up for the free course. Again, that's exactly what Matt started with. That will break down the basic questions, at least give you enough ammo to really give you the decision like, all right, is this real? Is it going to work? Do I want to put in the work to do it? If you say yes to that, we have a ton of tools available for you. We got the school group. It's only $10 per month, okay? We have the gold course that's only $199 at the time of recording. And then from there, we have a whole bunch of other stuff that we can help you with. We do website development if you want to get the same website that we use. We have a couple coaching products. So, and also feel free to use that free email support. It's Brandon@grouphomeriches.com or Andy@grouphomeriches.com. We are happy to help anybody if you have any questions on anything. And like I said, if you're going to actually take action on what we tell you, we'll continue to help you out along the way like we did with Matt here. So, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. I'll give you the floor. Do you have any parting words for the folks? And also let them know if they want to get in touch with you, if they want to learn more about you, where can they find your stuff?
All right. Well, yeah, I mean, I guess you've heard it 1,000 times that success is just taking small steps towards success. I think that we all have a problem maybe at points where we don't actually believe that's true. If you can get to the belief that that's true by listening to this podcast, seeing all the people who are on the school group who are successful at doing this, once you believe and have hope that that ending is true, then you can know that when you start taking steps, you can get there. That's the parting words. You can get a hold of me in the school group. I think we'll have somewhere in this podcast. My email address is matt@secondmix.net. matt@secondmix, secondmix.net. And yeah, feel free to reach out. You can find me on Facebook, searching Matt Bennet in Erie, PA. I think I can put the link in the school group somewhere also. But yeah, feel free to reach out. I love having conversations about this. I never have a problem with people asking me questions about how I got somewhere or did something. So yeah, I'll be an open book for you.
We'll have all those links in the podcast description as well for you guys. So, Andy, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, guys.
Matt, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story, dropping some knowledge for the folks. And yeah, we can't wait to see this thing blow up, and would love to have you on again for the update.
I'd love to be on again. Thanks for having me here, guys. I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.